I think we're in 17 different countries, and we have over sort of 2 million residents. And one of the critical things that we do that maybe other people can't do is we poll our residents to get feedback from them of what they want. And so we're highly focused on responding to what consumers are looking for in the market. And so, that goes from how we're designing our amenity spaces to how we design our apartments, to the type of mix of apartments that we have, studios, one beds, across all sectors from student through young professional, conventional, and senior housing as well. And we're doing single family housing as well now. So we're kind of reactive, I suppose, as a business. And our role in the design group within Greystar is to kind of respond to what we see as the demands in the market. And I think, there are very simple things that people want that just don't correlate with what the government thinks people want when you look at policy and you look at, what we're providing. If you were to list out the two things side by side, you would see two very different lists. So number one on our list is always security. So people like coming home, entering the building and having a concierge there, or a community manager that they build a relationship with over time. And so when you think about how should you design a building like that, well, you should actually focus a main entry point for the building where the community manager gets that FaceTime with people all the time. And then, when we think about our amenity spaces, those amenity spaces need to be in the best parts of the building. That's just a given. The value of an amenity space is actually only there when it's in the best part of the building, it's on the rooftop. Everyone benefits from it. It's a much more kind of democratic way of sort of thinking about housing. And so we kind of, we see that people want to be social. They want to spend time, they want to get to know the people who work in the building. They want to get to know other people. And so we've got to design spaces that sort of respond to that and enable that to happen. And so that's our kind of main focus is, what's that resident experience as they enter the building, go to the apartment, use the spaces. And then, within the apartments themselves, I mean, there's so many common mistakes I see in for sale housing, where for sale housing is primarily a showroom. It's a showroom, someone buys it, and then they only realize what the deficiencies are once they move in. It's presented in a way that looks like it's, it hits everything. Whereas in rental housing, you kind of have to make it work from day one. And so storage is the number one thing that you've got to get right. To give enough people storage to live in the apartment. And so, just very simple things like, for instance, for sale housing, the master bedroom might have 1.5 meters of linear storage. That's useless for any couple, one person is going to use up that sort of space. And so we're our minimums are around 2.5 to 3 meters. We provide underbed storage with the pop-up beds, and then sort of flexibility in how we're designing the units. Some units we're putting in the work table and Murphy bed approach, so you can sort of transform your sleeping space into a workspace. And then there are other simple things as well, like breakfast bars. Really simple. People love breakfast bars. And so pretty much every one of our projects has a breakfast bar in the conventional market. And then balcony spaces, you see the government will sort of say, everybody should have a balcony. Well, actually, what we want to do is we want to encourage everybody to use the outdoor amenity that we're providing and encourage the social interaction. And so we only provide balconies of maybe 25% of the apartments. And that gives us a little bit of a price point differential within the building, but then also encourages people to use outdoor spaces. Yeah, I think, we all have to accept that housing costs have risen exponentially compared to wages. And the government needs to figure out a way of dealing with that But we need to respond to the market today. We need to build housing that actually houses people. And as rental housing companies, they only thrive on successful communities that are 97 to 100% occupied. So we're not building buildings that are going to remain unoccupied. They're going to be occupied with people. But the demand for single households has increased massively. There's all sorts of demographic shifts that we've seen, but the major demographic shift, if you look back 40 years ago, 60% of all households were couples with children. Now 60% of all households are single people under the age of 40. And then something like, I think 20% are couples. So that proportion has shifted dramatically. And in some ways, government have been very slow to respond to that in terms of policy. There's an idea that if we build family housing, then families will suddenly spontaneously appear. But then what tends to happen is you get over-occupation and people living, 6 people living in a 3-bedroom apartment. So we've got to address the need in the market today, and the future might bring something different, but right today we've got to address that need for single family households. Now, construction costs have risen massively, and so you can't build 100 square meter apartments and rent them at very low levels because construction costs are driving up that cost. And so smaller apartments are inevitable smaller apartments are inevitable in the ecosystem, and we need them. And when you think about it, when we build smaller apartments, we're actually freeing up a lot of larger apartments that are used as sharer apartments. And so I think we need to build housing across the board. We need more student housing, we need more young professional housing, we need more conventional housing. It just needs to be built across the board. And a study was done recently. Someone just published a comment from a study recently, which was looking at building affordable housing as opposed to building straightforward market housing, and how it impacts the general housing market. And actually building open market housing has a significant impact on affordability because people are moving from the older properties into the newer properties, And so it's not so much how many affordable units are you delivering, it's how many units are you delivering overall that's the important thing. And we've just got to get building. And that's partly a partnership with the private sector, but I think governments have to step up and start delivering some housing as well.